When it comes to gear for the Dark Tetra Dualies, there are two routes you can take. You can take the more common route, which is running a full quick respawn build, or you can go with a full main power-up build. I'm going to cover both of these in depth right now, and I will also mention some alternative abilities that you can consider running based on preference. Alright, so I'm not going to go too in depth right now as to why quick respawn is a good ability, because I'm going to be making a whole video discussing this topic soon. But just know this, Tetra Dualies are a weapon that doesn't need any specific gear perks to help it out during fights. The base weapon is honestly really good on its own, so it doesn't need speed or ink efficiency perks like some other weapons do. However, as I mentioned earlier, Tetra Dualies are destined to die a lot just because of the very aggressive positions that the weapon is forced to take. It doesn't matter what you run, because there is no ability that's going to save you from dying to the many bad matchups that Tetra Dualies have. So with this knowledge, it kind of makes a lot of sense to run quick respawn. Clearly, I'm not the only one who thinks this way, because if you run into any good Tetra players online, chances are that their gear build looks something like this. Running a crap ton of quick respawn allows Tetras to play how they're supposed to be played, confidently and dangerously. With all of this quick respawn serving as a safety net, this will allow you to push forward, make openings for your team, and take fights that aren't directly in your favor. However, do note one thing. Just because you're running all of this quick respawn, doesn't mean that you shouldn't play smart. A lot of Tetra players who run builds like this seem to have this thought process where they think they can just take any fight they want throughout a game, and just keep constantly dying without really helping their team. Now obviously, this isn't the case. The advice that I have is to keep track of when your quick respawn will and won't activate. If you haven't gotten a kill after your most recent respawn, then you can afford to take some non-favorable fights since you'll just respawn in about 3 seconds, and you can stealth jump back in right away. But if your quick respawn won't activate, play a little more safely. Don't blindly hold forward. Think about your engagement and contemplate if you can actually win it. Alright, so that's my little spiel about quick respawn, but again, I'll be making a video soon that goes more in depth about quick respawn and why it's so effective. But let's finish talking about this gear build. So if you're going for a build like this, I'd recommend running around 4 mains worth of quick respawn. There's no specific amount that's optimal, but just go for something like this. So you have your quick respawn, but what else should you run? Well, I'd argue that stealth jump is perhaps the most necessary ability for Tetra Dualies. Given how much this weapon dies, you're going to be put in situations where you need to jump back into your teammates to maintain pressure. Plus, stealth jump and quick respawn kinda go hand in hand. They complement each other very well. So that makes up the main meat of the quick respawn build. You could literally just run stealth jump and the rest of your gear set is made up of entirely quick respawn. But in my opinion, sacrificing a couple subs of quick respawn for some other abilities is definitely worth it. I would recommend these other abilities to be 1 sub of bomb defense and 1 or 2 subs of quick super jump. You could also run 2 subs of swim speed if you want, but run no more than that. And there you have it, the quick respawn build. Again, there's no specific amount of quick respawn that's considered optimal, but just try and aim for it to be around this amount. It's up to you what you want to put for those few extra subs. Alright, so next up, we have the less popular Tetra Dualie build, being the main power-up build. Similar to some other weapons, main power-up gives Tetra Dualies increased damage. If you run enough of it, you can actually deal 33.2 damage per shot, which will result in you being able to kill opponents in 3 shots majority of the time. So on paper, this sounds great, like why wouldn't you run this build? Well, while it can be good, it definitely has its downfalls. The most obvious problem with running this MPU build is that you no longer have that safety net of quick respawn, which allows Tetras to play a bit dangerously. Without that safety net, you're forced to play a lot safer. You can no longer just rush into any fight that you please, because if you die with this build, you're getting a normal respawn time every single death. The other issue with this build is that it leaves very little room for running anything else. If you run the amount of MPU required to give you the 3-shot potential, this only leaves you with 1 main and 1 sub left over. In my opinion, you should still be running Stealth Jump, just because it pairs so nicely with Tetra Dualies. As for the 1 sub, it's up to you. I would highly recommend putting Bomb Defense there, as one sub of Bond Defense is extremely effective, but you could also put a sub a quick super jump if you really like having faster jumps. So to conclude, the main power-up build for Tetra Dualies is a viable option, but you'll have to play smart. Just because you're able to 3-shot people doesn't change the fact that Tetras have a lot of poor matchups. The reason why a quick respawn build is more popular is because most people determine that ultimately they can be more effective by getting fast respawns compared to having a 3-shot potential. One other kind of build to note that's pretty common is a sort of hybrid between the QR and MPU builds. This build runs just enough MPU to reach 30 damage, which will let you break ink armor in one hit. While this isn't necessary, this will definitely help you out in some situations, since Tetras do struggle dealing with ink armor on their own. Alright, so this build is definitely less common than the previous 3 builds that I mentioned, but I have seen a few top Japanese players run this, so I felt that I should include it. The all-around build has, well you guessed it, a little bit of everything. It retains the same amount of MPU as the hybrid build, allowing you to break ink armor in one shot. This build also has a little bit of quick respawn. While it's definitely way less than some of the previous builds, it's still enough to shave off a couple of seconds from your respawns. This build also still has stealth jump, but what makes the all-around build unique are the sub abilities. As you can see, there's 2 subs of swim speed, which will give you enough speed to make you equivalent to a lightweight weapon. There are also 2 subs of ink resistance, which can help with taking damage in enemy ink when you're dodge rolling. While I personally don't think that ink resistance is worth it on any of the prior builds that I mentioned, it still has the potential to assist you and can be worth running on a niche build, such as this one. This is another build that you should only consider running once you feel extremely familiar with the weapon. So which one of these builds should you use? Well, if you're someone who is just starting out with the weapon, I highly recommend going for the hybrid build. This is because it serves as a good learning tool for learning bad matchups and getting used to the movement in game. Once you become experienced with the weapon and learn how certain matchups work as well as how the weapon functions, you can create a full MPU build. After that, it's just a matter of preference for which one you prefer to use. As for me, I tend to run this hybrid build on splat zones since ink armor is the most obnoxious in this mode. For all the other modes, I usually run a full quick respawn build or occasionally the full main power-up build. So at first glance, you would think that comeback would be amazing on Tetras. Since Tetras die so much, wouldn't you constantly be receiving the benefits from comeback? Well, yes, but let's look at this a little closer. If you recall, I said before that Tetras are a weapon that can function very well without the use of any specific gear perks. It doesn't need increased speed or ink efficiency, the base weapon is already really good. Now, let's take a look at what exactly comeback does. Following a death, comeback will give you the equivalent of one main of the following abilities for 20 seconds. Ink Saver main, Ink Saver sub, Ink Recovery up, Run Speed up, Swim Speed up, and Special Charge up. So yeah, this seems really good, and you can totally run it if you think these abilities will help you. But among top Tetra players, comeback isn't very common anymore because they've determined that the benefits from comeback don't help Tetras enough to warrant losing that main of quick respawn. Tetras don't need ink efficiency perks, its ink consumption is already fairly decent. It definitely doesn't need any run speed, since you're mainly going to be dodge rolling with this thing, and run speed doesn't affect your dodge rolls. You also don't really need special charge up, since you have splashdown, which is the worst special in the game, and you'll get shot out of the air most of the time anyways. So I guess the only benefit from comeback that Tetras will truly benefit from is the swim speed. But remember, the benefits only last for 20 seconds. If you really want the swim speed, just run an actual main of it so that you always have it, rather than only receiving it after a death. So with all of this knowledge, ask yourself, is comeback worth it? Personally, I don't think so, but there are some people who disagree. Either way, comeback definitely isn't a terrible option for Tetras. Haunt is a very interesting ability. If an opponent kills you, it will show you where the opponent is when you respawn via a white silhouette. That silhouette will not go away until the opponent gets splatted, and this can be by anyone on your team. However, if you splat the opponent, then they'll essentially be respawn punished. In other words, it will take them a little longer to respawn than normal, and they will also lose more of their special meter. So again, this is another ability that would seem really good on Tetras, since it's giving you a benefit from dying, and Tetras die a lot. While I do think that Haunt is more viable on Tetras than Comeback, the same question still remains. Is it worth losing that main to quick respawn? For a lot of top Tetra players, the answer is still no. I rarely see Haunt on Tetras nowadays. But this doesn't mean that you shouldn't use it. If you really like what Haunt has to offer, then run it. It really just comes down to personal preference, and the same can be said for Comeback. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video. If you didn't know, this is the gear section for my Dark Tetra Dualies guide. I just wanted to make this section into its own video, since I think it's something that a lot of people would be interested in by itself. But if you haven't seen the full guide yet, please be sure to check that out. I received a lot of positive feedback on this guide, and I promise it's something worth watching if you're interested in Tetra Dualies. The link will be in the description. Anyways, that's it for me. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all next time.